Does your marathon time matter? You've heard of running, the marathon is 42.195 kilometers, or for most of us, it's 42.2 kilometers. It started off in marathon in Greece, and the guy basically died, and now we go, in order to honor him, in order to kind of find the peak of performance at the moment, the marathon is what we often decide to as a runner's perspective. No, a 5K marathon is not a marathon. A 10K marathon is not a marathon. They are just runs. They are a 10K or a 5K run. The marathon is the distance. But why is it so important? Why does the time even matter? Every single time I go to a run club or meet a new runner, one of the first questions I ask, or they ask me, is how long have you been running for? What's your next race? What races have you done in the past? Have you done a marathon? If you've done a marathon, what is your time? And there is this something about knowing somebody else's marathon time or their peak time at one point in their life, or their fitness, of why does that even matter? Why should you matter about your marathon time? Does it even mean to be a good thing or a good measurement of somebody in running or fitness? Um, why are we so fascinated about pace or how fast someone can do it? Does the training for a marathon actually matter? There are so many people doing I did a marathon without training. Is that even an important thing? What do you gain from something like that? Is there more to do with the character of doing a marathon? Is it actually the peak of performance? Is it going to change to people doing marathons so consistently now to going and doing a 50K or 100K as the benchmark of success in endurance? And so I come in here speaking from the point of doing, this will be my third marathon coming up in Melbourne, Australia, in the next couple of weeks. I've done multiple ultra marathons, from 100K UTA in Australia to a 100-mile run around an athletics track, to an Ironman, which was actually my first marathon. And so the time in the marathon is something that people come back to a lot. I want to kind of give my perspective on whether your time in the marathon actually matters, or who should it matter to. For me, one part of, hence why I went down the trail running path or the ultra marathon path, was that it is so focused around time. Marathon, or how fast you do things, even in an Ironman, it so comes back to time, and that is the biggest judgment on anyone, is how fast you actually are compared to everyone else that's already done one. And this is easily the good and the bad part about it. It's good because you can see someone else who's done a 4 hour marathon, and you're like, maybe that's achievable for me. That gives me a benchmark. But then you get to the same point of going, oh, someone's done a 3 hour 15 marathon. That obviously makes me terrible because I've only done a 3 hour 30 marathon. And so it comes back to, I think, a lot around judgment of, why the hell are you doing a marathon in the first place? What makes you go out there? What are you trying to prove when you do a marathon? Often people who start running or do multiple marathons is running for a certain reason. You might think you're not running from anything, but quite often of the time you actually are running for something. You're trying to prove that you're better than what people thought you were in the past. You actually enjoy running to the extent there's something kind of cool about pushing yourself to the absolute limit, to doing something that very few people kind of see as important, or like very few people think that they can actually do. There's so often that I go into work or non-running places or communities that they're like, you did a marathon? Holy shit, that is incredible. Even when I've said I've done 100K, they're like, oh my God, that's mind-boggling. It's this thing that is very achievable for anyone. It's just a matter of time. Because when you put it in, like I said at the start, a marathon is only 42.2 kilometers. Everyone's probably covered that at some point in their life. It might have taken them a week, it might have taken them 3 months to walk that far. But they're not even tracking it, they don't even know. But for somebody's time to be able to achieve that is incredibly important to them. And so I think you've got to kind of find a balance of asking the question why you're here. Why are you trying to run this bloody marathon in the first place? Are you doing it to prove to somebody else that you're great? Are you trying to do it internal reasons, to just see what you're capable of? Does the time actually matter? Like when you're 50 years down the track, does your marathon time define who you are as a person? I think what a marathon teaches you is it's not actually completing the marathon. I think so many influencers, and it's so big now, people that are just doing the marathon for the sake of doing a marathon, that they avoid all the training, they avoid getting it done because they believe that internally that is this measurement of success of completing a marathon, which it is. It's a tough challenge, but what you're ultimately deciding is that you're prepared to go through a lot of pain without doing the real work. The outcome, the medal, saying you've done a marathon is not the real work. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's a challenge. But what you're trying to do is determine something better about yourself. To do a once off, do a marathon, or even like I've heard people doing 4 or 5 without really training for them, without putting a block into it. I've done them in the past. It's a cool metric to say you've got the capacity to go out and do it. But really, the value of a marathon is in the training for it, is in your 12-week, your 16, 20-week block, depending on what stage of your marathon journey you're at. And actually showing up to each session to find this balance between what your body's capable of and what you can train at each time, a way to improve and progress in it. And in that, it's building the character. It comes back to the atomic habits of how you show up every single day. How do you show up into these sessions? Someone that's completed a marathon finds value in doing a 4:30 marathon. But if you work and grind to just get like a 3:40 marathon, I appreciate the effort and who you've become in that journey, because it's about the grind, it's about the work, it's about developing the character. Every single run and every single training session is the work that you go into to try and become a better version of yourself, to try and define who you are and how you show up in the world. Someone who consistently goes and does marathons and puts training blocks in place, who is there somebody that could actually do all the training for a marathon and not actually need that fulfillment to go out and finish a marathon? That is the hardest almost task to do, is to do all the work and not get the outcome. Not because you're not capable of it, but to know that you don't need it to prove that you are something. I mean, you've gone to all this work, so you might as well do it. But could you at least not have the medal? Could you at least not talk about it? I think this is the hardest kind of battle between trying to prove yourself and what you're capable of in a marathon versus going out there to see, only for yourself. If no one else is looking, to appreciate the effort and the training that you've gone into to become that person, the character. Is it resilience? Is it grit? Is it understanding? Is the ability to optimize the rest and recovery of this process, to understand nutrition, to understand the mental clarity to go through a marathon. I also think, why a marathon? One of the best analogies I've ever heard is marathon is just an arbitrary distance. It doesn't actually matter. Why are we saying that 42.2 Ks is the standard of endurance? Why not 50? Why not 100? Why not 35? It was just because the marathon sounded cool back in Greek times. 42.2 Ks is such an arbitrary distance. No different to the Goggins challenge, a 4x4x48. It's just an arbitrary distance. Same with 100K, same with 50K. There are all these arbitrary things as a record of success. I knew when I came back to timing for a marathon that I went longer and tried to improve my marathon time because I didn't really want to acknowledge the fact that maybe I could go faster, that maybe I can lose weight, maybe I can put in the harder effort of trying to refine and optimize and create efficiencies in my running, as opposed to getting my ego fulfilled by going for a longer distance and saying, yeah, I've done 100 miles over, I just did my 3:30 marathon. I just found it, at that point in time, I thought it would be easier to prove who I was by doing a bigger event than by going faster. I think your pace is important to see what your potential is. I like to come back to when you're 80 and your body's at its wit's end, to understand like what is the most that you can optimize your body. Are you able to do a sub 3 marathon in your life? Is your peak only a 3:10? I think internally my fastest marathon time is a 4:07. I'm hoping to do a lot better than that this time around, but I know I kind of have this hope that everyone's capable of a 3-hour marathon. How much effort and time and grind it takes to be able to do that, I don't know. You basically only have to hold a 4:10 kilometer for 3 hours. It does sound kind of nuts at this point in time. To summarize, does your marathon time actually matter? Marathon time only matters as much as it matters to you, not compared to anyone else. To know that you've given absolutely everything, that you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, this is the best marathon time I'm able to achieve. I left nothing on there. You don't want to be like, I was too old, I was too young, didn't put time into it, I didn't put the training into it. To know that that was everything you gave. I've got this tattoo, and this is one that I used to try and come back to for confidence. Basically, stay in your lane and block out the noise. It's so hard to keep reminding myself to not find the judgment of others based on my time and what I'm capable of, but to really become accepting of my body will give me whatever it can on race day. If it's a 3:35, cool. If it's a 3:25, cool. If it's a 3:30, cool. But to know that the true benefit, I believe, is to know that whatever that time is, you've got the capacity to work on it, to work on yourself, to hopefully refine that time, appreciate the work, enjoy the tempo, enjoy the long run, enjoy the people that you meet on the journey, and stop trying to prove that you are okay, that you're capable. To focus on, is this who you want to be? Is this who part of your life you want to be known as or defined by? I'm Patrick Farnan. Always go far.